One. And we are live. Welcome everyone to the Somnia Codelabs. My name is Emmanuel, and it is a delight to be having yet another edition with you where we get to talk about tech on top of Somnia. And today it is my pleasure and my delight to be anchoring this session. For those who do not know me, I am with the developer relations team here at Somnia. In this edition, we are going to be doing a deep dive on using Thirdweb on Somnia as first of a two-part series. This edition features a very special guest from Thirdweb. Hello, Ayman.
Hi, Emmanuel. Nice to be here, and
Awesome.
uh, and hello to everybody as well who's joining us.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you here, Ayman. So just before I hand it over to Ayman before we go into the main session, I'd quickly like to lay down a few ground rules for everyone. Please send in your questions via X or YouTube, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. Please be civil and keep your questions to the topic being discussed and to other technical questions that you may have about Somnia or Tedwell. Before we go into the main session, Ayman, I'd like you to briefly introduce yourself and kindly tell us what it is you do at Tedwell.
Yes, I'll do that. So, hi everybody again. My name is Amen Abdelbo name. You just can call me Amen. I like to say Amen like you're praying. Amen. I lead the solutions and success team at Thirdweb. I've been doing that for 3.5 years, and what that means is that I've had a front row seat working with all kinds of different customers, everything from, largest kind of Web3 enterprises to startups to NFT projects to games, and game publishers, to also, and as well as working with ecosystems and marketplaces, and really just the whole flavor of different applications, both consumer as well as business facing applications. The team's responsibility is like the responsibility of a concierge in the Thirdweb hotel. That's what I like to always say. When you go to a fancy hotel like Emmanuel, we know Emmanuel only stays in fancy hotels. You have a concierge there. If you need dinner reservations, they point you to the dinner reservations. If you need to know where the WC is, and they'll point you in that direction. They'll make suggestions, and that's what we do with Thirdweb. We have a full suite of tools at Thirdweb for developers who are building on chains like Somnia. Everything from front end wallets, and we'll get into that later in the session. I'll walk you through that stack. But my job is to, map what it is that customers want or are hoping to accomplish in their applications to the various tools in the Thirdweb toolbox that they can use to make that a reality, and to do that easily, and to do that in and be able to do go to market in a very rapid fashion. So I love what I do because every day I get to see different projects, and no two projects are the same.
Awesome, awesome. That's a delightful intro, and I think that's a great way to get into the session because I'm going to be handing it over to our concierge for the day. And having said that, a quick reminder on the ground rules. Please, if you have any comments, kindly leave them on the post on X, and then we'll get to attend to them at the end of the session. Thank you very much for joining us. Handing it over to you, Ayman.
Great. All right. Yeah. So I'm your concierge. So welcome to the Thirdweb Hotel. Um, Let me tell you a little bit about what Thirdweb is. I mentioned it in my introduction. We're a full stack developer platform. We have a whole suite of tools, SDK infrastructure that allow you to build, monetize, scale. This is what you'll see on thirdweb.com. Um, we're one of the largest providers of dev tooling in the Web3 space. We are partners with the Somnia chain. And so when you go to Thirdweb, we actually, we work with all EVM chains. And if you go to thirdweb.com/chainlist, you'd be able to see all of them. And obviously for us today, what we're really interested in is the Somnia chain and the testnet. And once the mainnet launches, it'll be here as well. And so you can go to this landing page, and really this is where you can, get started. This is where I would like to, point people to, is like to get started. Everything from, we have a faucet here. So, this is where you can acquire some testnet funds, um, as well as you can see the various Thirdweb products and infrastructure that is connected to the Somnia chain. Okay, so so do definitely check that out. Now, before I kind of walk through our tooling, I like to sort of say, like, what do we mean? So this is an example app, maybe, like, I think one that I like to use this as an example, because it's the one that a lot of people, when they're first come to crypto, they think about, which is like a token marketplace. Think of this as like tokens or NFTs. And this is a showcase app that we built. And this is built all with Thirdweb components. Okay. And really, like, whenever anybody is building a Web3 app, you're going to need these components. What do I mean? Well, you need a way for people to be able to connect to your application. You want to be able to support folks. There's probably two flavors of teams. There are Web3 natives who might, let's say, have a MetaMask or their wallet of choice. And you can see here that our Thirdweb Connect supports, 500 plus different wallets. Or the user might just be a regular, user who's just used to logging in with their social logins, their email, or if they're on mobile, with their with their phone. So I can log in here, and I'm just going to log in using my Google account. So that's kind of the first step here, is that I've given people a way to connect to the app. And I'll show you, all these little pieces I will show you. The other thing that you're seeing here on this page as a marketplace is you're seeing all of this kind of on-chain data, right? Like token information, pricing information, pricing change information. And so we have something, we have a blockchain API, an analytics API, we call it Insight, that would allow you to be able to get blockchain data into your app in a very easy programmatic fashion. The other thing, if you remember, the commercial, it said build, it said monetize, right? Well, maybe people want to be able to purchase Godcoin, right? So we have something we call Universal Bridge, a way for folks to be able to purchase without leaving your website, without leaving your app, to either pay with their wallet, where we can automatically, bridge and swap assets from one chain onto the Somnia test chain, or also allowing for fiat on-ramps. So for folks who have debit cards, Apple Pay or Google Pay, and they want to be able to purchase using that, you can do that using Thirdweb's Universal Bridge. So that's a really key component. Actually, probably the most important, because we launch apps, and all the entrepreneurs that are on this are thinking about, yeah, they want to launch an app, and they also want to make some money. And so monetization is a really critical piece to this. And so I'll show you Universal Bridge and how you can incorporate that into your site. And then the last piece that you can think about is rewards, right? So, as people engage with your application, a lot of teams are interested in, I want to give them, let's say, reward tokens. The more that they purchase, the more that they interact, I want to do that. And so we have a back end tool for being able to automate distribution of assets on chain that we call Engine. So all of that I showed, that you can kind of see in this application, you as a developer can easily do, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Oh, and there's one more thing, right? Which would be, hey, this is the age of AI. And so we actually also have a AI we call Nebula, which is our own LLM. It's its own that you can interact with. That also, using natural language, you can interact with assets, you can launch tokens, you can purchase, bridge and swap, all using that. So I'll show you Nebula as well. So let's go to what's called our playground, right? So playground.thirdweb.com. Everybody here has access to that. It's a live sandbox playground where you can interact and kind of get a good sense of all of the different components that I was telling you about. You can configure. So we talked about the connect button. So this is the connect button. You can, as you can see here, let's say if I, as I am, let's say I don't like Farcaster, I don't want Discord, but maybe this is what I want. I want these as being the login methods that I want in my app. I can also choose, let's say, Web3 wallets that I want. I can configure the appearance here. If I have my own color scheme, I can do that. This is a 100% configurable component that you can just configure, take the code here, and literally cut and paste this and put it on your own website. And now you would have, this connect button. The exact same one that I showed you on the token marketplace showcase app is here. And so I've logged in with it. And you'll see that our connect button has a lot of built-in features to it. So a way for folks to be able to top up their wallets, to be able to put tokens here via this buy. That is very similar to what I showed you on the token marketplace when I was purchasing the token. So if you're a developer, when I talk about Thirdweb and I talk about our SDKs, our job as a team is to make development easy, but also to give you the flexibility to craft the experience you want to craft. So yes, we offer out-of-the-box components like the connect button that I'm showing you here, but you can also craft your own experiences yourself with our headless SDK. So everything that I show you, whether I show you a connect button or whether when we speak about Universal Bridge, you're going to see this pattern of pre-built components that are cut and paste, throw it into your app. But if you're, you have more advanced use cases, or you want to control everything about the onboarding experience yourself with your own buttons, with your own, dialog boxes, etc., you can just use our headless SDK. Cut and paste, throw it into your app. Emmanuel, was there a question? Okay. All right. So Connect is your onboarding. Alongside the idea of being able to support your different users, social and email wallets versus your Web3 wallets, which I've showed you, another key component is thinking about whether making it a frictionless experience for your users. And that's where account abstraction comes into play. And so with Thirdweb, we support a whole variety of EIP standards. It's 7702 is the latest one. The Pectra upgrade, which happened on Ethereum a little over a month ago, and is slowly kind of coming to various L1s and L2s. But 4337 is there as well, and is available on Somnia. And so in this example here, what I want to do is I want to mint this kitten, my kitten here, and I want to do it. You can see I don't have any crypto, but I want to be able to sponsor that for the user. I can do that here. So I can click the mint button here. You can see the code to the left, and all of this is facilitated in a gasless fashion via like one flag here that we passed into the connect button, where we passed in the chain. So this would be the Somnia testnet. You would say sponsor gas equals true, and voila, like you now have gasless, what are called gasless transactions. Users would be able to, do things like what I just showed here, minting NFTs or performing any other kind of on-chain transactions. So that is what we call connect. Think of it as everything related to connecting your users, and as well as allowing them the ability to do things like linking profiles and their social profiles and stuff to their wallets. So check that part out on Playground. So the second piece that we talked about, if you remember on the token marketplace here, when we went to, this purchase, right? I want people to never leave my site to have and be able to purchase this token. So going back to our playground, that is what we call universal bridge. So that component that you see on the token marketplace is this pay embed component. And again, like I said, this is an out of the box component. It's as simple as you taking this code, putting it into your app to get like a checkout where people are able to purchase with crypto. This supports a variety of what we call modes, right? So one mode is getting funds, which means, hey, I want to purchase and put it in my wallet. But another one that's very common would be something like this. Let's say that I'm an e-commerce website and all I want to do is, so I sell hoodies, but I want people to be able to pay with stable coins, right? So think about what that flow would look like, right? So what I want to do is I want to process the 2 USDC or USDT, right? And then once I've confirmed this purchase, I'm going to ship the hoodie to my customer, right? How can I do that with Universal Bridge? It's this pay embed component, but now the mode has changed to what we call direct payment. And the way direct payment works is you, as the seller, would say, hey, this is where I'm collecting funds, right? You set your payment info. And so what happens is that when a user performs this transaction and essentially sends the 2 USDC to the seller address, our Thirdweb universal bridge will send your application a notification. So it will go to this address. Once the 2 USD is there, you'll receive what's called a webhook, right? It's calling to your thing saying, hey, payment confirmed for Amen, whose information is whatever my information is. And then now you can kick off whatever it is, whatever processes you have for fulfilling this order. So that's called direct payment. And you can even go as far as another mode, which is transaction. So the idea is you can, even if I want to, let's say, any smart contract call that I want to have users have the ability to, let's say, pay um, uh, like in this case, I'm going to, what I'm going to do is I'm claiming an NFT from my Ninja Cat NFT collection, for this much ETH, right? Then I can craft a checkout experience like this. So this is Universal Bridge, right? So we've talked about connecting users. We've talked about monetizing users. The next sort of, if we just move down here, is engine. So if you remember, I was saying, hey, you want to reward your users, right? As users are doing things on your app. Well, engine, so once you open up account with Thirdweb, you'll find you can set up what's called an engine instance. That'll allow you to do things very easily, like what I'm doing here. So let's say that I want to airdrop to my users. So kind of think of it as I have a spreadsheet or a CSV of wallet addresses. And what I want to do is didn't mean to click on that. And let's say what I want to do is I want to, send to each one of these recipients, right? So I'm starting an airdrop. And so what's happening here, you're seeing what it's doing is it's saying transaction queued, transaction sent, transaction queued, transaction sent. What's happening is actually in the back, these assets are being airdropped by a server wallet that's in my engine, right? So this is my wallet as the app owner. And what's happening is I'm essentially, here's the code, right? I have my array of addresses. Here's my contract address. And essentially it's as easy as me creating the transaction and then queuing and sending that transaction through the server. And so Engine will take care of queuing all of the transactions, performing any retries. You know, if you've ever tried to do something like a mass airdrop on a chain with gas spikes that are happening, you know, you can get into situations in which transactions, you know, are pending, they're not going through, they need to be retried. And so all of that complexity is taken care of via Engine. And so, you know, both you can create, you can do transactions like this, but the other thing that you can do is, you know, is that Engine has is what are called webhooks. And so the idea with a webhook then is once a transaction is performed, this is Engine calling my app and giving me the status of the transaction as it's happening. So you can see here that it went from queued, then it went to sent. This is happening on base Sepolia, and then now it's mined. And so, you know, you'd get all of those transaction statuses in your app, and then you even get the transaction hash as well. You can see get other information about what happened. So that's Engine, right? So think of that as your distribution engine for being able to, you know, send rewards to your users. And then the last piece that we saw on the token marketplace was, was all those pricing information, right? The stats, the blockchain analytics, and that's Insight here. Insight is a set of APIs. You know, let's say, you know, you want to, for a particular wallet, you want to, let's say, show the transactions, you know, that have happened on that wallet on particular chains. You'd be able to do that using this indexer API. And again, this is just a simple REST API that you call an endpoint with the parameters, the query parameters that you have, and then you get the results back. So the last piece I said, you know, here, and then, you know, I promise we'll leave this, we'll have time for questions here. So the last piece was I have to show you Nebula, right? So Nebula is our AI, right? So anybody here, if you wanna, you know, use Nebula, you can go to nebula.thirdweb.com. And you can, you know, use this like a, you know, just like you're using ChatGPT. Nebula also has an API, right? So you can both use the Nebula app. You know, think of this as like this is our ChatGPT for Thirdweb's Nebula. But there's also, in the same way that you have an API with OpenAI, there's a Nebula API. So if you're thinking about incorporating something like this, whether it be chat or whether it be just other sort of, or you're building an AI agent, you can do all of that using the Nebula API. Okay, but what are some of the things that you can do? Let's do something fun, right? Like with it. So let's just go ahead and launch a token. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to say launch a token. All right, let's create your token. Just name it and I'll get started, and then it'll take care of the rest. So ask me for this sort of information. It can even generate an image for me. Okay, fine. So, you know, here I'm going to call this Somnia workshop. Okay, so, you know, let's say this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say symbol is Somnia, and this is for my Somnia workshop. Total supply 10 million. And I want you to generate the image for me. I like a space cartoon feel to the image. Okay. And so, Nebula is going to give you, the status of this. And so while we're waiting for this, what are the types of things you can do besides launching tokens? You can do things like you can query blockchains. So you can give it a transaction hash and it will tell you, the details of that transaction hash. You can have it read or write smart contracts, right? All of this via natural language. It also has access to token pricing. It can do bridging and swapping, right? So you can you can really do a whole variety of things with Nebula. So in the background, what's happening here is, what Nebula is doing is it's going to, it's taking all of this, it's going to, essentially prepare everything related to this. You're going to see it here. Okay, so here you go, pretty cool. All right, that's not a bad image. Okay, it gives me all of the information here. So you can see here that here's the token details. The total supply is going to be 10 million. It gives me the IPFS link to the image that's already been uploaded by Nebula. And what you see here now is I've gotten a transaction back, right? And it's essentially saying, for me to deploy this transaction, I can do that, right? And so in this particular case, I'm using the wallet that I'm connected to Nebula with here, right? So this is a smart wallet. And so this is where I would be able to send this transaction, okay? And so this is now being, essentially, going through this smart wallet. You can see the transaction is confirmed, okay? And now what Nebula is going to do is it's going to show me the results of that transaction. And so that's kind of, that's Nebula in a nutshell, right? So think about, some of the things we've seen folks using Nebula for. One use case is, imagine on a marketplace app like this, having a chat button here that, hey, I want to buy, instead of having this, like you can just chat and talk with it. Or you might want to like ask questions about this token, right? You might have like an Ask AI button that you wanted to use. So here you can see the information for for what happened. Here's the contract address. And this has been minted on the chain. So the other use cases we'd see, someone building like, and we ourselves also at Thirdweb, we have a example where we have, I think on Twitter, it's called Ask Nebula. That what you can do is if you tweet to Ask Nebula, or if you're on Farcaster as well, you'll be talking to Nebula, on Twitter. So there are folks who are doing like Twitter bots, or or other bots on other networks. We also have folks doing kind of more metaverse type AI agents, right? Like, essentially like avatars that are AI agent avatars for games that are going to be on chain. So that is Nebula. And with that, Manuel, I did my best in 20 minutes here to give people gave everyone a tour of the hotel. So hopefully we have some good questions.
Awesome. That is one of the best concierge services ever from the Thirdweb Hotel. Thank you very much for taking the time. Amen. Just before we jump right into the questions that are going to be coming from the community, again, kindly drop your questions if you are on X, and also if you are watching on YouTube. We'll be able to see all of those questions and attend to them. But as we are taking those questions, I want to ask, so basically for developers who want to like take these components and include them in their applications, so what platform specifically would their existing example codes that they can pick and go build on, right? And do you have any particular recommendations for platform that they should prioritize first?
No, I mean, when it comes to the platform, a lot of that has to do with the kind of app that you're building, Emmanuel, right? And in that sense of it, if I go to our portal, thirdweb.com here, and just kind of show folks um, what we have is, if you look here at our API references, what we've tried to do is where we've tried to, give that flexibility to developers to be able to, regardless of the platform that they're choosing to build on. If they're a gaming platform, they typically use Unity or Unreal. If you're a web app platform, you have React, right, and TypeScript. If you're building mobile, we have a React Native. We even have a .NET, right, which is tied to our Unity. So in that sense of it, when it comes to our SDKs, we try to be cross-platform with more platforms coming. And then the other thing is also a lot of what I showed you and you saw in the playground are also APIs, right? So it's language agnostic. If you have a Python backend and you need insight data, you can just fetch from the insight API, right? Similarly with Engine, there is a fetch API there as well. So if you're building on a backend, regardless, it's a Go backend, it's a Python backend, we have people able to use Thirdweb's APIs there as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that feedback. Then regarding code security, I think it's no secret that Thirdweb prioritizes making sure that all code samples being shared have been audited. And then regarding using Nebula as a tool to like also build code samples, right? So would you recommend developers to feel very safe copying code examples from Nebula as well, knowing that it ingests this data from Thirdweb to use in the applications?
Absolutely. I mean, the idea with the code samples is to make it easier for developers, Emmanuel, right? Obviously developers can just look at our API reference and they can just build it themselves. One thing that I would say about Thirdweb is that we are open source. So everything about Thirdweb is open source, right? All of our SDKs are open sourced, right? So folks, you have full transparency in terms of, the actual code related to it. Our smart contracts. So if you decide, I didn't mention this, but we do have a set of, going back here real quick, right? So, like we have contracts, right? So we have pre-built audited smart contracts for everything from NFTs to tokens to marketplaces, right? These are also open source, right? So the source code is available for folks, right? The audit reports as well are there. So, I think that, we know that that's super important for folks, right? That they, not only from a security perspective, but also just from feeling like you have control, right? Open source is the way to go, right? So that, everything is kind of transparent for the developer.
Awesome. Thank you for that feedback. I think a quick question from the community, and it would be great if you can also share the link on here. The question is that you did mention that Thirdweb is compatible with Unity. So the ask is if there's a tutorial on how to integrate.
You can. Yeah. So I would highly recommend that person go to our portal like I'm doing here. And then what you're going to see, what you're going to see here is examples, right? And so you have links to various examples that you can both run as well as those repos are available as well. So you can also take a look at those and use them as an example.
That is great. Thank you very much. Amen. I think with that, we have come to the end of this session. So the audience has the opportunity to always leave questions on X and also on YouTube, and then we'll be able to answer them after this session. But before we close out, I always like to ask our guests two questions. First, what would be your advice for developers who are going to be exploring how to build using Nebula and also the Thirdweb SDKs? Any particular insights that you have not shared during the course of the session that you want them to know about? And then after you've answered that, we'll come back to just take some parting words of encouragement from you.
So first of all, let me say this to everybody, right? My DMs are open on Twitter. So if folks are building and do have questions or want to reach out, feel free to do that on Twitter. Um, on the Nebula question, Emmanuel, I would say that um, similar to if you've built with other LLMs, the first thing that I would suggest you do is get to know Nebula. I mean, literally, like talk to Nebula, like spend time getting a good sense of what Nebula can and cannot do, right? Using the Nebula app, and then use that then as your guide when it comes to now you building your own AI agent. So that would be my advice on the Nebula side of things. And then on the kind of developers, first getting started, absolutely leverage the UI components that we have, right? You can always start with a connect button, and then you can move to using, more of the raw SDK once you become more familiar. But what we hope we've done is we've made it so that you don't have to be a Web3 like expert. If you've just built web apps before, that's all you've done. There's no reason why you don't have to know that much about blockchains, because we've abstracted away a lot of the blockchain specifics for the developer, so that use by using our SDKs. So we have a Thirdweb examples repository in GitHub with all kinds of examples that you can see how things different things like an NFT marketplace and others. If you go to thirdweb.com/templates, you'll also find templates there. So definitely start there.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Amen. And then to close out, just what would be your parting words of advice for everyone watching us right now?
Okay. Two things. First of all, you can do it. And secondly, what I would say would be, you know, be iterative. We have at Thirdweb, we're very much, if anyone who follows Thirdweb, you'll see we're shipping features all the time. It's part of our culture, is about shipping, right? Like, iteratively, and to get things out there, to get feedback from your users, and then turn around and you make improvements. So that would be my advice for people. Don't overthink it. Don't, the perfect is the enemy of the good. We have this expression about it, and get stuff out there and get feedback from your users.
Awesome. And having said that, I think that's the most beautiful place to close out this session. Like Amen said, just start building your applications. And just as you are very well aware, I'm always on Discord waiting to get to see your applications. We are very, very heavy on community here at Somnia, and we're always here to support you through your process of building out your applications. So, having said that, thank you very much for joining us here, being on this session. You would always find this video on YouTube, and then you can go back and watch it to catch up on the things that you may have missed during the session. Thank you very much for being here with us. Thank you very much. Amen. And stay with Somnia, everyone. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.